He's a no-show. He never was one of us. He just wanted the contract and the notoriety, but he didn't want the work.
Warren Sapp is finally revealing why NFL players can't stand Keyshawn Johnson. From locker room arrogance to public feuds, Keyshawn's attitude burned bridges across sports. And now, Sapp's revelation is changing how people see him. Let me break it down. The spark, Sapp versus Keyshawn, when ego met ego. Warren Sapp was already a god in Tampa Bay before Keyshawn ever showed up. A 7-time Pro Bowler and Defensive Player of the Year, Sapp embodied everything the Buccaneers stood for: grit, loyalty, and dominance. By 1999, Tampa's defense was a nightmare for any offense, but the team had one major flaw: no scoring power. So when Keyshawn Johnson, the flashy New York Jets wide receiver and former number 1 overall pick, became available in April 2000, Sapp was ecstatic. He wanted him there. In his mind, Keyshawn was the missing piece. The Bucs traded 2 first-round picks to get him, and Sapp himself lobbied Tony Dungy to make it happen.
Keyshawn comes to me and says, "Listen, dog, me and you unite. We can put this thing together. You just need a little offense." And mind you, I just lost the game 11-6. "Oh, I get you that 7 points, Cup. We can do this."
It sounded like a brotherhood forming, but that unity didn't last long. Sapp claimed that while the rest of the Buccaneers grinded through off-season workouts together, Keyshawn was absent. No team dinners, no conditioning drills, no buckball family culture. That single statement wasn't just a jab, it was a scar. For Sapp, it meant betrayal. He had personally vouched for Keyshawn, believing he'd strengthen the team. Instead, he felt like Keyshawn wanted credit without commitment, and Sapp wasn't the type to bite his tongue. Once you lost his respect, you never got it back. Their personalities could not have been more different. Warren Sapp was the enforcer, a loud, proud, Florida-born trash talker who'd fight anyone to protect his team's identity. He represented old-school football, where players earned respect through sweat and silence. Keyshawn Johnson, on the other hand, was a media-made star. Drafted first overall in 1996 by the Jets, he was already famous before catching a single NFL pass. He wore designer suits to press conferences, spoke like a brand ambassador, and saw no reason to play small for anyone. That divide between blue-collar authenticity and self-promotion defined everything that followed. When Keyshawn published his autobiography, "Just Give Me the Damn Ball," after his rookie year, it was a warning sign of what was to come. In it, he called out teammates, questioned his coach's intelligence, and openly accused quarterback Neil O'Donnell of faking an injury. The message was clear. Keyshawn didn't care about politics. He was going to tell his truth, even if it meant burning bridges. So when he walked into the Tampa locker room years later, that same energy clashed head-on with Sapp's leadership. Where Sapp demanded respect through loyalty, Keyshawn demanded it through confidence. 2 alpha males, 1 locker room, and 1 inevitable explosion. In 2002, the Buccaneers finally broke through. Under new head coach John Gruden, they dominated the NFL and destroyed the Oakland Raiders in Super Bowl 37. It should have been the perfect redemption story. Sapp's defense crushed, Keyshawn got his ring, and the city of Tampa celebrated its first championship. But even amid victory, Sapp's relationship with Keyshawn was fractured. Sapp later explained that while most of the team bonded through shared work ethic, Johnson stayed distant, always orbiting the spotlight instead of the squad. To Sapp, that wasn't leadership, it was vanity. "There's a difference between mandatory and voluntary mandatory," he said mockingly. "I'll take my chances on the voluntary mandatory stuff." That line perfectly captured how Sapp saw Keyshawn. Talented, but not invested. And even though they were Super Bowl champions, the tension underneath was impossible to ignore. Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Rondé Barber, all future Hall of Famers, kept their heads down. But privately, even they acknowledged that Keyshawn wasn't like the rest of us. The following year, the rift turned public. By the middle of the 2003 season, John Gruden, who had once defended Keyshawn, had reached his limit. The two men's relationship had completely deteriorated. Gruden accused him of being selfish, disruptive, and disrespectful to staff. In November, the Buccaneers announced that Keyshawn was being deactivated for the rest of the season, a rare move in the NFL, especially for a healthy star player. Officially, the team called it a mutual decision. In reality, it was a firing in disguise. Even Sapp, who usually loved confrontation, didn't bother defending Keyshawn. When asked about it, he shrugged it off. To him, the situation was predictable. Years later, Sapp reflected on the entire saga and summed it up bluntly. He just wanted the contract and the notoriety, but he didn't want the work. It was no longer just a personal grudge. It was, in his mind, a fact of history. That same year, Sapp left Tampa for the Oakland Raiders, while Keyshawn was traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Their shared championship became just another chapter in a book full of resentment. Fast forward to 2008, Warren Sapp is retired and stepping into television, bringing his same blunt energy to inside inside the NFL. Keyshawn, meanwhile, is already a polished analyst for ESPN, confident, smooth, and still commanding attention. Then came the infamous moment that reignited everything. Sapp revealed years later that producers told him to insult Keyshawn on air to grab attention. "I was new to TV," he admitted. "I didn't know how this worked. My bad, Key." But the internet doesn't care about context. It cares about sound bites, and that one went viral. Every headline screamed, "Warren Sapp calls Keyshawn Johnson a B*** on national TV." Fans thought the beef had reignited. Keyshawn thought the disrespect had returned. And social media, always hungry for conflict, took sides instantly. Keyshawn didn't stay quiet. In 2023, after clips of Sapp resurfaced on Jason Whitlock's show, Keyshawn went off on Twitter, now X, calling him fake, a liar, and an embarrassment. "Warren Sapp, please stop lying. I would never in a million years follow your sorry ass ever. You are an embarrassment to society. Sorry, and I mean sorry. Please keep my name out your mouth. Fake. Sad. Go get some help." The public feud had officially entered its modern phase. It was no longer just about who worked harder or who deserved credit. It was about pride, reputation, and how each man saw himself in the eyes of the NFL. Sapp responded casually, saying Keyshawn was just name-calling and that he was only telling the truth about Tampa. "Ask my teammates," he wrote on X. The truth don't need defending. For fans, it was deja vu. Two grown men, 2 decades removed from the field, still throwing punches through microphones and screens. While Sapp's feud is the most famous, it's not unique. His complaints about Keyshawn, selfish, fake, not one of us, echo what many other legends had said long before. Back in his Jets days, veteran receiver Wayne Trevitt quietly told reporters that Keyshawn's attitude made chemistry impossible. Coach Bill Parcells, who traded 2 first-round picks to get him, later admitted Keyshawn was talented but exhausting. And when he left Tampa, even respected veterans like Derek Brooks described him as a different kind of cat. Not bad, just different. Over and over, the pattern repeated. Keyshawn would walk into a locker room with charisma and confidence, and leave with everyone tired of him. That doesn't mean he wasn't great. It just means greatness, in his case, came with a cost. What makes the Warren Sapp feud so important is that it exposed the pattern that followed Keyshawn his whole career. He wasn't hated because he was lazy. He wasn't hated because he lacked talent. He was hated because he refused to play the game the way everyone else did. In the 90s and early 2000s NFL, you didn't question your quarterback publicly. You didn't call out your coach in print. You didn't treat the media like your personal PR team. But Keyshawn did all of that, proudly. To traditionalists like Sapp, it wasn't confidence, it was betrayal. And to fans, it became entertainment, the kind of drama that made him both unforgettable and unforgivable. Warren Sapp and Keyshawn Johnson's beef is more than just personal bad blood. It's a symbol of 2 eras colliding, the old school grind versus the modern superstar mentality. Sapp represented the warrior code. Keyshawn represented the rise of individuality in sports. And while both men were right in their own way, neither could coexist with the other. Their story isn't just about one quote or one fight. It's about how ego, ambition, and pride can turn champions into rivals, and how, even decades later, the locker room battles of the past still echo through the halls of football history. But as bad as things got in Tampa, Warren Sapp wasn't the first or the last legend to call Keyshawn out. From the Jets to the Cowboys, his reputation followed him everywhere. And what started as confidence turned into a pattern no one could ignore. The pattern, from Jets drama to league-wide rebellion. Before Warren Sapp ever called him out, before John Gruden ever benched him, Keyshawn Johnson had already become one of the most polarizing figures in football. He wasn't just another wide receiver. He was the prototype for the modern NFL diva. Talented, outspoken, and absolutely unwilling to play the political game. To understand why so many legends, from coaches to Hall of Famers, couldn't stand him, you have to go back to where it all began. New York City, 1996. Because that's where Keyshawn's story and his reputation truly started. Most rookies walk into the NFL trying to prove themselves quietly. Keyshawn Johnson walked in and wrote a book. After being drafted number 1 overall by the New York Jets in 1996, Johnson entered the league with unmatched swagger. He was the first wide receiver taken first overall since Irving Fryer in 1984, and he wasn't shy about letting everyone know he deserved it. Then, after just 1 season, he released an autobiography, Just Give Me the Damn Ball, written with Shelley Smith, and it detonated like a grenade in the Jets locker room. In it, Keyshawn called out almost everyone, his quarterback, his teammates, his coaches, and even the team's culture. He accused quarterback Neil O'Donnell of faking injuries to save his job. He criticized coach Rich Kotite for being too soft. He said his teammates lacked hunger. He even described himself as the only player with real heart on the team. The New York Times called it one of the boldest rookie tell-alls ever published, noting that it burned bridges with almost every veteran on the roster. The book became infamous not because it was false, but because it was true, and he had the nerve to say it out loud. And in the conservative world of 1990s football, honesty was the quickest way to make enemies. The fallout was instant. Veteran receiver Wayne Trebet, a beloved underdog who had fought his way from walk-on to starter, reportedly took offense when Johnson mocked him in the book as a mascot. Trebet's quiet work ethic made him the anti-Keyshawn, a symbol of everything fans admired in a player. When the media began asking who the real leader of the Jets was, the tabloids pounced. Trebet's nickname became Mr. Third Down. Keyshawn's, Michon. It was the start of a long-running narrative. For all his talent, Johnson's mouth would always overshadow his performance. Teammates tried to defend him, briefly, but even those who liked him grew tired of his constant critiques. "He's got superstar talent," one anonymous player told the New York Daily News, "but he acts like everyone else is beneath him." It didn't help that the Jets were terrible, going 1-15 in 1996, and Johnson was the only bright spot. To fans, that made his arrogance tolerable. To his teammates, it made him unbearable. Everything changed in 1997 when Bill Parcells, the legendary two-time Super Bowl champion coach, took over the Jet. Parcells was known for two things: rebuilding broken teams and breaking players' egos. At first, he and Keyshawn clicked. Parcells loved confident players, and Johnson loved being coached by a legend who didn't fear him. The Jets improved dramatically, reaching the AFC Championship game in 1998. For a moment, it looked like Keyshawn's reputation was about to change. But as always, peace with Keyshawn never lasted. By the end of the 1999 season, the same problems resurfaced: skipped practices, public criticism, and friction over play calling. Parcells reportedly told team executives that Johnson talks too much for a guy who hasn't done enough yet. Despite back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, the Jets' locker room was tired of the drama. Parcells, who once traded for Keyshawn and believed in him, eventually decided he was too much trouble to keep. And so, in April 2000, the Jets traded Johnson to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 2 first-round picks, a stunning move that signaled one thing: even legends like Parcells didn't want to deal with him anymore. In Tampa, Keyshawn was supposed to get a fresh start. The Buccaneers were an elite defense, but a sluggish offense. They needed swagger. They needed star power. They needed Keyshawn. And for a while, it worked. He became the team's top receiver, helping Tampa reach the playoffs and eventually win the Super Bowl in 2002. But inside the locker room, the same old issues were bubbling. Keyshawn clashed with John Gruden, the fiery new head coach who had replaced Tony Dungy. Gruden was every bit as demanding and volatile as Keyshawn, and the two couldn't coexist for long. By mid-2003, things had completely unraveled. Gruden accused Johnson of being selfish and disruptive. Johnson accused Gruden of lying to players. The tension reached a breaking point when the Bucs deactivated Keyshawn for the rest of the season, something almost unheard of for a healthy star receiver. When asked about it years later, Gruden didn't mince words. He told ESPN, "It's a shame, but some players just can't buy in. You either love football or you love attention, and there's a difference." For Warren Sapp, that quote only confirmed what he'd been saying all along, that Keyshawn's biggest opponent wasn't on the field, it was his own ego. When the Dallas Cowboys signed Keyshawn in 2004, fans thought he might finally mellow out. He was older, more experienced, and joining a team that demanded discipline. But within a year, it was deja vu. Keyshawn found himself clashing with quarterback Vinny Testaverde, and later with coaching staff over offensive priorities. He publicly complained about his role, saying he was underused and too good to be a decoy. Even Bill Parcells, now coaching Dallas, couldn't keep the peace. The same coach who had once defended Keyshawn in New York now found himself dealing with the same old friction. Reporters close to the team said Parcells often rolled his eyes whenever Johnson's name came up in meetings, and when Terrell Owens joined Dallas in 2006, another high-profile, outspoken receiver, Parcells didn't hesitate to release Keyshawn rather than deal with two egos in the same locker room. The writing was on the wall. Keyshawn wasn't a team cancer. He was a personality type the league had grown tired of managing. By the late 2000s, Keyshawn Johnson had built a resume that was equal parts impressive and infamous. He'd caught over 800 passes, made 3 Pro Bowls, and won a Super Bowl ring. Yet almost every coach and Hall of Famer who crossed paths with him had the same story. Keyshawn was great, but exhausting. Even his peers in the wide receiver fraternity, players like Randy Moss and Chad Johnson, distanced themselves from him. Moss once hinted in the 2009 interview that some guys talk leadership, others live it, widely interpreted as a subtle jab at Keyshawn's self-proclaimed captain persona. The message was clear: respect his talent, sure, but not his attitude. Ironically, Keyshawn's legacy didn't die with his controversies. It evolved. He became the blueprint for a new generation of diva receivers who would dominate headlines in the years to come. Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco-Johnson, and later Antonio Brown. All three carried traces of the same DNA, the showmanship, the defiance, the demand to be heard. But unlike Keyshawn, many of them acknowledged that he was the one who made that path possible. In his autobiography, Toe, Terrell Owens even admitted that Keyshawn paved the way for receivers to speak their mind. But he also added a telling caveat. The difference between me and Keyshawn is I still showed up on Sunday and dominated. He talked like me, but didn't produce like me. That single line summed up how the next generation viewed him. A trailblazer, but not a conqueror. By 2007, Keyshawn retired from the NFL and joined ESPN as an analyst. It was supposed to be his reinvention, a chance to prove that the outspoken young star had matured into a thoughtful veteran voice. But even in broadcasting, old habits die hard. Keyshawn's trademark confidence and sharp criticism rubbed people the wrong way, not just viewers but co-workers. He frequently clashed with analysts who questioned his takes, including Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and later on NFL Live, ex-players who felt he talked down to them. As one ESPN producer reportedly put it, Keyshawn doesn't argue to win, he argues to be right. That mindset, while entertaining for TV, only reinforced the perception that he was the same Keyshawn, just with a microphone instead of a helmet. By this point, a pattern was undeniable. Wherever Keyshawn went, New York, Tampa Bay, Dallas, or ESPN, admiration and frustration followed in equal measure. He wasn't universally hated. In fact, many respected him deeply for his intelligence and leadership. But among legends, the players and coaches who valued humility and quiet excellence, he remained a thorn. Because to them, Keyshawn represented something they despised, a player who put self-expression before submission. And while the NFL has since evolved to embrace personality and brand building, back then, that kind of independence made you an outcast. And even after football ended, Keyshawn didn't escape the same criticism. From ESPN feuds to clashes with modern players, the same attitude that once electrified locker rooms now divides studios. In the final part, we'll break down how Keyshawn's ego turned him from star analyst to media villain, and why legends still can't stand him. The fallout, from ESPN stardom to being frozen out. When Keyshawn Johnson hung up his cleats in 2007, it felt like the perfect rebrand. He wasn't just walking away from the NFL. He was walking into the next phase of his career, television. Articulate, handsome, and unfiltered, he had everything a network could ask for. Within months, ESPN signed him to a multi-year deal to appear on NFL Live, SportsCenter, and eventually First Take. It was supposed to be his redemption arc, the story of the loudmouth receiver who matured into the wise veteran voice of reason. But it didn't take long for everyone to realize something. Keyshawn hadn't changed. He just changed microphones. At first, ESPN couldn't get enough of him. He was charismatic and confident, often the only analyst who could hold his own against Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless. But as ratings grew, so did the tension. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly described him as hard to manage. He wasn't the type to follow talking points or tone down his opinions. He challenged colleagues on air, interrupted debates, and often treated other analysts like rookies who needed a lecture. Former ESPN staffers later revealed that Keyshawn's confidence sometimes bordered on condescension. One producer said, "He doesn't argue to make good television. He argues because he thinks he's always the smartest guy in the room." And that wasn't just an off-air perception. It showed on camera too. During heated football debates, Keyshawn rarely backed down, even when facts didn't support him. If Stephen A. Smith called his take ridiculous, he doubled down. If Skip Bayless tried to troll him, he turned the segment into a monologue about football IQ. Viewers noticed. Some loved his bluntness. Others thought he was just as arrogant as ever. As his television career grew, so did his list of rivals. Not on the field this time, but in the studio. One of his most well-known on-air feuds was with Michael Irvin, another legendary wide receiver turned commentator. Irvin, known for his passionate and emotional delivery, once told NFL Network audiences that Keyshawn was Hollywood without the work. Irvin didn't mean it as a personal attack, but the jab hit close to home. The two men represented opposite ideologies. They respected each other's careers, but the chemistry was non-existent. Even years later, Irvin admitted that he thought Keyshawn overestimated himself as a leader and underestimated how much people resented him. Then there were subtle tensions with Chris Carter and Randy Moss, two Hall of Fame receivers who appeared on NFL shows around the same time. Moss, usually calm and reserved, once told a colleague off camera, "Man, I can't tell if Keyshawn's giving takes or giving orders." It wasn't hostility, it was fatigue. People respected his knowledge but not his tone. But no feud defined Keyshawn's ESPN era more than his constant back and forth with Stephen A. Smith. While the two men maintained professional respect, their chemistry often turned combustible. Stephen A. was the alpha personality of First Take, and Keyshawn was the one man who refused to play second fiddle. There were moments when their debates turned genuinely hostile, Keyshawn rolling his eyes, while Stephen A. shouted, or Smith cutting him off mid-sentence to keep control of the show. Clips of those moments still circulate online, often captioned, "Stephen A. humbles Keyshawn again." Fans loved the chaos, but insiders saw it differently. The friction wasn't scripted. It was ego versus ego every single morning. By 2023, ESPN had begun restructuring its lineup, behind the corporate phrasing of budget cuts and strategic realignment. Many insiders believed that Keyshawn's strong personality made him too difficult to fit into the new direction. In June 2023, ESPN announced his departure as part of a wave of high-profile layoffs. Just like that, Keyshawn's six-figure contract, rumored to be worth nearly $18 million, was gone. And for a man who built his brand on control, this one stung. After leaving ESPN, Keyshawn joined FS1 Speak alongside Joy Taylor and Emmanuel Acha. It was a smaller platform, but it gave him the one thing he craved most: freedom. At Speak, Keyshawn doubled down on his veteran voice persona, using every segment to lecture younger analysts and call out modern NFL players for being soft or entitled. He called Aaron Rodgers selfish, said Tom Brady's leadership was overhyped, and claimed Dak Prescott was mentally fragile. It was classic Keyshawn, confident, confrontational, and completely unapologetic. But while it made headlines, it also reignited old criticism. Former players began firing back on social media. Tyreek Hill mocked Keyshawn for talking about greatness he never reached. Richard Sherman, who's never been afraid of debate, called him a dinosaur who doesn't understand today's game. To fans, it looked like the same pattern all over again. Another locker room, another set of people tired of hearing Keyshawn talk down to everyone else. By this point, the narrative was set. Across decades, generations, and platforms, Keyshawn Johnson had maintained the same reputation. Brilliant, articulate, and exhausting. Even some of his closest friends admitted it privately. Bill Parcells, the man who traded 2 first-round picks for him, once said in an interview, "Keyshawn's a good player, but you spend half your time coaching him and the other half managing him." John Gruden was even less diplomatic. "He's all in until the first time you tell him no." Different men, different teams, but the same conclusion. They respected his knowledge. They respected his skill. They just couldn't stand it. So why does the name Keyshawn Johnson still spark irritation among NFL legends? It's not jealousy. It's not bitterness. It's philosophy. For players like Sapp, Irvin, Parcells, and Gruden, football was a code. Loyalty, silence, grind. For Keyshawn, football was a platform. A stage to express truth, challenge authority, and define himself. To the old guard, that felt like betrayal. To Keyshawn, it was evolution. And that's why they'll never see eye to eye. Keyshawn believed being honest was leadership. His critics believed being loud was selfishness. Both sides were right, and both sides were wrong. In many ways, Keyshawn Johnson paved the way for modern sports media itself. He was one of the first athletes to control his own narrative, long before Twitter or podcasts existed. He didn't wait for reporters to interpret him. He told you exactly who he was. Players like Richard Sherman, Cam Newton, and even Deion Sanders followed that blueprint. Unapologetically outspoken, media savvy, and unafraid of headlines. The difference? They balanced charisma with likability. Keyshawn never cared about being liked, and that's both his strength and his curse. His honesty made him unforgettable. His ego made him unapproachable. And that paradox is exactly why, decades later, people still debate whether he was misunderstood or just misunderstood on purpose. When you strip away the noise, the feuds, the quotes, the showmanship, what's left is a man who refused to conform. Keyshawn Johnson didn't want to be coached, corrected, or controlled. He wanted to be heard. And in a sport built on hierarchy, that alone made him a rebel. Even Warren Sapp in his later interviews seemed to soften slightly. Not toward Keyshawn personally, but toward the idea that maybe their feud was just two men too proud to bend. In one interview, Sapp said, "You don't judge who gets in the Hall of Fame. You celebrate them." Maybe that's his quiet way of saying he's moved on. Maybe that's the only apology we'll ever get. Today, Keyshawn Johnson remains one of the most recognizable voices in football media. He's a businessman, a father, and a survivor of an era that never quite knew what to do with players like him. But among NFL legends, the ones who played before the age of brand deals and personal podcasts, he'll always be remembered as the man who broke the code. Because long before player empowerment became a buzzword, Keyshawn Johnson was already living it, loudly, unapologetically, and with the same defiant confidence that made the world love him and the locker room hate him.